All right, Chief, we should be recording.
Perfect. Thank you, Carl. Welcome, everybody, to the, what month are we in? May 2021 meeting of the Fire Service Membership Council. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order and ask Carl to do a roll call for everybody.
Okay. Thank you, Chief Metz. I've got you. Chief Reed, are you on? Christine Reed? Okay. I just got a note from Chief Adams, so I'm sending him the link right now. Rick Boisford? Chief Buxton, I've got you. Chief Okay, I'm gonna, just so that everybody knows, I'm gonna do a quick mute all and then unmute myself again here really quick too, because I'm getting some feedback. Okay. Chief Buxton, I've got you. Chief Cowan, I believe he had to decline today. Fire Marshal Desrochers, I saw you on. Tim Deal, I've got you. Chief Krasinski, Deputy Chief Hyde, are you on? Deputy Chief Hyde. Chief King. Kelly Nicolello, I've got you. Fire Marshal Porter, I have you. Steve Swarthout, did you sneak in? Did I see you? Steve Swarthout.
I'm here.
Gotcha. Thought I saw you come in there. Thank you. Chief Wassom, I've got you. Chief West, I've got you. And Past President Bryant, are you on? Okay, I haven't seen him yet. Chief Metz, I believe we have a quorum. Is there anybody else that I missed that just signed on? Chief Reed?
Yes. Hi, Carl.
Gotcha. Anybody else that I missed? Okay, Chief Metz, back to you.
Thank you, Carl. And I'd like to welcome everybody today, especially our guests and members of the Fire Service Membership Council that have decided to join us today. We really appreciate your participation. This is your membership council, so we may make up the governing committee, but really this is for everyone's benefit, and we really enjoy it when we see high numbers at our monthly meetings here. It shows us that the work that we're doing is reaching you all, and gives you an opportunity to participate as well, because our work groups are where most of the work gets done. I would also like to welcome Jim Brown, ICC Board of Director, as well as our current president, Mr. Greg Wheeler, is joining us right now. There'll be a section in our agenda after that. But I'd like to jump in and welcome our special guest that we've invited today, also an ICC Board of Director member, Ms. Angie Wiese. We all know her. She's been a longtime supporter and former board liaison to here. But today, Angie is going to be coming to us as a member of the ICC ES Board of Managers, one of the other hats that she wears. And I'd like to welcome Angie here, and she's going to give us an overview of what ES does, what the fire service should be aware of, and what our role is in some of the reports, and just basically a general overview of an area that a lot of us may not know a lot about, and it's an important portion of the ICC Code of Families and our other organizations that ICC does own as part of the subsidiary process there. So with that, Angie, thank you for joining us today, and the floor is yours.
My computer had a little delay there, so I muted and unmuted and muted again. I'm assuming you can hear me now.
Yes, we can.
Okay. And then I'm going to go into presentation mode here. And since I am working two monitors, you have to tell me if it's picking up the right one.
Angie, if you have any tech issues too, just holler. I can put up the presentation on my end too, if you'd like.
You know, if you could, Carl, because that'll allow me to be able to see my Teams window better and see if people have questions and stuff.
I can. Give me a quick
great.
moment to get the file here and I'll.
I have not changed it since you saw it.
Okay.
We will also help you, Angie, monitor any questions that may pop up.
Thank you. So while he's doing that, I just want to point out that even though I'm the Board of Managers liaison for the ICC board with ES, this presentation is not me speaking as a board director. I'm more speaking to my kind of intersection of knowledge between being a user of ES material, being an authority having jurisdiction, being somebody who knows what ES does, and being an ICC board director. So kind of using all of that intersection, but you'll notice here that I didn't use like ICC template material on this presentation, and that's on purpose. This is my take. This is not, you know, ICC sanctioned. This is my viewpoint. And so I welcome any other feedback and actually challenges to my point of view, because it is just that, you know, have I would say a wealth of knowledge and different uses, both in the work and then just on the ICC board. So that's why it's called Angie's Take on Current Operations in the Future. You can go to the next one, Carl. So what is ES? You've probably seen this logo. ES stands for Evaluation Services. But if you go to the next one, they are an ICC subsidiary. They evaluate products using codes and standards for the built environment. They are accredited by ANSI, SCC, A2LA, and EMA to conduct plumbing product listings to the Mexico standards. So they also develop and interpret ICC acceptance criteria for innovative products, and that I think is probably one of the areas where there seems to be a rub sometimes between code officials, particularly fire officials, are those innovative products. And then also, you know, they're staffed by licensed professional engineers and evaluation specialists. Next slide will kind of get into where all those points touch. So I imagine folks on this call are most familiar with this top bullet here. These are the different programs that ES has, but I think most code officials intersect with them on that top one. Obviously, our MEP folks are going to intersect with them on the plumbing, mechanical, and gas side. But just those evaluation reports, I think, are what most code officials intersect with ES on. But they do have other programs. You might have seen some of these logos. They are similar to, you know, similar to a UL listed or type emblem. I'm cautious here because Kelly's on and he's gonna like scold me and slap my hand for comparing ES to UL, but you know, they are similar but different, and they serve different roles, I would say. But some of the programs are quite similar, especially in more of the listing categories. You can go to the next one. An ES report. So sorry for the crammed slide here, but it was really the only way to get this all on one page. Really what I wanted to highlight here is that in some ways, these are very similar to SDS sheets that you have reviewed. There's different sections of ES reports. They're formatted all the same, so they have all of these different characteristics. And it really does require the user, both on the designer side and on the AHA side, to look at every single one of these sections. It is not enough to say, well, I have an ES report for that foam product, let's say. You really do have to look at all of the details, and this shows it as one page, but sometimes these are very, very lengthy. And that designer might not be utilizing that product or proposing to utilize that product in a way that is consistent with its ES report. So really evaluating the product for the purpose, get some zoomed in there, for the purpose that it applies in whatever you're reviewing. So if that is, maybe it's an interior application where this ES report specifically says it can only be used on an exterior application. You really do need to finely tune and look at this report and all of these different sections to make sure that they apply appropriately. I can't tell you how many SDS reports, or sorry, ES reports, SDS too, for that matter, but ES reports I've seen where they are proposing the material in a way that is not consistent with the ES report. I also want to point out that there's nothing that requires an AHJ to accept this report. This is a tool, so it's think of this as ICCES doing that validation for you, and it's still your decision on whether or not to accept it. So if you are, let's say in the absence of an ES report, you are told we would like to use this product. It has no listing. It's very new on the market. And we think it's, let's say, similar to mineral wool. Well, how would you ever know? And I just wouldn't say how would you ever know, but you're left there on your own deciding whether or not what they have proposed is similar enough to something that is actually in the code. And you're on your own doing that. We're put in that position all the time. Is what I've been submitted close enough to what's in the code? Am I able to accept it as an alternative? And ES reports help you make that decision, but you're not required to accept that product, even if you do have an ES report. Go to the next one. So what are the benefits of ES? I got ahead of myself. So they are evidence that a code official can use to evaluate to determine whether a product complies with the codes and standards. It can avoid otherwise required department time and resources to ensure compliance. So it can avoid your own research or diving into other tests that have happened, those types of things. Finding similar materials that might have had a test. Those are things that code officials do all the time, and it's very time consuming. It can reduce health and safety risks associated with departmental liability. So, something my building official says is, this sounds like a good idea, but I need a leg to stand on. This ES report is that leg to stand on. It might not be in the code as a black and white approved either product or method of building, but an ES report can give you that leg to stand on as it has that, that it's been evaluated. Depending on what year you are on your codes, you might be using more ES reports than others, because if you're on the 2003, well, there are products and advances in technology that have gone light years since then. So you're probably going to be using a lot more reports to justify different building materials and processes than if you're on a more updated code. And with that, just speed and permitting review. If you have these reports that substantiate the materials and the methods that the applicant is proposing, then that speeds up the review. Again, if you accept them. And then these are freely acceptable for building departments. You can search for them. They should be provided to you, though, by the applicant. But you can do your own lookup as well if you feel that what you were provided is not kind of the whole story. So when thinking about this, and this, I say this as a Fire Service Membership Council opportunity. I actually think this is an opportunity for any of the membership councils who would like to take it up. Or, I think it's very important that we educate code officials on the proper use of ES reports, and the other programs as well. And I say proper because it is. We all have very busy departments. The amount of things that our plan reviewers are asked to look at now is just enormous. So I fear, I should say, that there's a tendency to say, oh, you have an ES report for that? All right, I'll skip past that piece of the review because you have an ES report for it. Just like I've been told on different products, well, it's UL listed. This piece of plastic that I want to put in at the hospital is UL listed. So I look up the UL listing, and yes, it is UL listed, but it's UL listed to be used in interiors of cars. That is not the same. And that is not the proper listing for the application. So I think that there is a really good opportunity to do some training of code officials on how to really utilize ES reports and utilize them properly. And by proper, I mean both to the department's advantage, but also in a way that supports the department's goals. And that's, to be able to review them and review their application, the application of that material in a good way. So with that, I open to others, and it would be great to hear from the Fire Service Membership Council on how you intersect with ES's work, and other questions, concerns, or even solutions on how you think we can get the work that ES does out to particularly the fire service in a better way.
I've got two questions, Angie, off the top of my head. First, if somebody wants to go and get something listed by ES, I think a lot of us are familiar with the UL listing process, where they've got a test process that's been established, and you can see the process of how they're going to go about. How does ES list something? Do they have established processes or testing criteria before they decide that this product is worthy of getting a listing from ES?
Yeah, so there's, I will first say I'm not the expert in this, but there's, I would say, kind of two main ways I look at this. In some of the processes, there's evaluation criteria, just like you're stating, like UL has. They develop a test standard, and there's evaluation criteria. I also think of this in a different way, similar to other UL testing, actually, in like how certain industries will go to UL and say, I want to do a test on our storage arrangement for fire sprinklers. I want to, I think that, let's say Target, I'm just saying it as an example. Target will say, I want to prove that our storage arrangement with this sprinkler coverage works is effective. And then they go to UL, they do that test. It is unlike any other test. They're just trying to prove that it works. And then they go to the codes and they say, put this in the codes, please, because we've gone to UL and we've decided that this, we've proven that this works, this storage method and arrangement for sprinklers works. ES, I see a lot of the products are similar to that type of process because they have a specific way that they think their product should be used and that they want to market it towards, and that is beneficial to them, but it's not it's too specific for the codes. If you know, the codes, sorry, the ICC codes are not allowed to put something in the code that is specific only for a particular trade item. So ES is the way that they get to that and say, our market is 4 inches of foam on the underside of parking garages and podium buildings. I mean, that's really specific. And if that is what they want their product to be, and they do a test that is for that use and prove its safety, then, the ES will limit it to just that application.
Okay. My second question is, if we come across things in the field, machinery or whatever, and it's not listed, it's been brought in from another country or something, and as a code official, we say, you need to go and get that listed, and they go to ES and request that. Is the time frame it takes to get something reviewed and evaluated and listed by ES on par with, UL or some of the other listing agencies that are out there? Or, is there benefit to saying, yeah, we can get through a listing process, quicker than some of our other competitors? Or I've never done the process before myself, so I really don't know, what a lead time would be to have something listed. So I was just curious if we had any idea what that time frame looked like from start to finish on approaching ES on a listing criteria issue.
I do not know the answer to that question.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to it with UL either.
I don't either. That's what I was asking. It was,
yeah.
This is all, I have yet to come across an ES listing in the field out here in Southern California. So I've talked to other people that said, yeah, I've seen it in my jurisdiction, but I have not been in the field for quite a long time. So
yeah, I think there's 2 points that are usually driving that conversation for the applicant, and timeline is one of them, and then dollars is the other. Those tend to be the two that drive, and UL, there's other testing laboratories as well. We focus on UL because we like them. They're good partners for the fire service. I'm on the UL Fire Council, full disclosure. But that's obviously going to be an individual decision for that manufacturer on which way they want to go and what their goals are too. Because UL has such a strong background in smoke alarms and fire sprinklers, I bet most of the entities who are looking for that type of listing are going to go to them. So, there's different, there's several different factors, I think, that drive where an entity goes to get their product listed.
Angie, can I jump in there for a second?
Sure, only if you can do a shameless plug for UL.
No, actually, it was going to benefit ES. So a couple things, according to your question, Randy. One is understand that verification of a sales material is one form that ES does. It's probably what they do best, to be quite honest, especially for the brand new products that they're not quite ready prime time. There's no standard out there, so there's nothing to test them to. So the term is really verification. So company says my product does X, Y, and Z, and ES comes in and they can verify it does X, Y, and Z. UL does the same thing. We have a verification stamp that we use. It's not called a listing per se. And then depending on what the product is, ES may have the capability to list it according to a standard, or they may not. Now with the acquisition of a burn lab in South Texas, they have the ability to do some of that testing where they had not had that before. And so they've stepped up to a greater depth from a listing service standpoint. However, there's other aspects based on standards for like electronic components and those kind of things that kind of go through a whole battery of tests they may not have the ability to do. So ES is picking and choosing really the areas it wants to get into from a listing standpoint. Granted, UL is the big dog in the room when it comes to listing services and testing. However, there are a lot of other competitors out there, and ES is one of our competitors besides being a partner, and we recognize that. And I would advocate one other point, Angie, that there is a really good place for the fire service to get involved, and that's when ES puts out an advertisement or a request to develop criteria for a key subject. That wasn't me. So when that comes out, that usually will come out in a very public way. That's the opportunity to weigh in and say, hey, whether or not this is a good idea or not. And there's a couple examples out there. Well, let's talk about inflatable spray booths. The question was, should ES go down the road to try to develop criteria for something that really isn't?
Somebody's sharpening their pencil or something.
Yes, it's not that great of an idea for anybody. And there is no standard. So the best anybody could do right now would be. So ES does provide an essential service. I'll give them that, and they're able to do listings in some components, and it's great for those new products just coming out. And from a timetable standpoint, it all depends on workload and cost and shipping and what is it that has to be provided. So that fluctuates from project to project, regardless if it's UL, ETL, or ES services.
Yeah, one of the things you mentioned there, Kelly, is that, you know, a verification when there is no listing. I've had a building official tell me, well, I'm not going to let them do this because it's not UL listed. And I said, well, there is no listing for that. And he's like, exactly. That's why I'm not going to let them do it. And I said, okay, but it's just like saying, you know, there's no listing to put curling irons underwater. Like, I'm just making something up.
No, you're right. You're right. So if there's no listing, what that means is there is no standard.
Yeah, that's
the relationship people have to understand. So now what do you test to? Well, I have nothing to test to. Even if I had the capability to test, I cannot because there is no standard. Again, I go back to inflatable spray booths as being one of those that has no standard. So what do you test it to? The best you could do would be the manufacturer's sales claims that this is what this does. And then potentially from that, you can develop criteria to be able to test that verification against, and then go down the road from there.
I do agree with you too, Kelly, that getting those call outs by ES, if there is no fire service voice that goes into those call outs, you're going to have incomplete testing criteria or information going to ES. So knowing that the Fire Service Membership Council has several different committees, it might be one of those kind of a standing point person for Fire Service Membership Council to review those and decide whether or not it is something worth the Membership Council's time to get involved in.
Well, if I may just jump in there just a little bit on that, I would say our emerging issues folks kind of fall in that category, and that is something that they could contribute to as part of some of the projects that they've been involved in, though it's not necessarily used for all criteria established by ES.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for Angie on the topic? And I apologize, I have a plumber working at my house under the house right now, so that may be the background noise you're hearing. I thought they were done, but they seem to be working right under my feet right now where my office is.
Randy, Crystal Sajeski's got her hand in the air.
Crystal, thank you.
Hello. Hi. I have a quick question, actually two. One is, are the tests that the ES service does, are they repeatable, and how many times do they have to be repeatable to be accepted? And then the second question is, on the website, it says that the reports, at the final stage of the process, a report is issued. Are those reports proprietary to only the applicant or can the AHJ see those reports?
Angie, you're muted.
Angie.
It would help if I unmuted myself, wouldn't it? I'll start with the second question. So the report itself is public. The final report, just like the SDS. There's obviously going to be some proprietary information in all of the testing reports, as far as like all of the documentation and data that goes into that final report. So I don't know that that is available to an AHJ. But the final report that looks like what I showed earlier, that is obviously available, and you can look them up yourself. And I believe that you can look them up by manufacturer. There's several different ways. So if you were provided an ES report, you might be able to find something similar and say, well, you gave me this one and it doesn't really quite fit what you're trying to do. Is there a reason why you didn't choose this one? That seems like it is better suited for your situation. Now that's depending really on how involved you want to get in the review process. But your first question, remind me again, Crystal, what it was? I'm sorry.
So when they do the test evaluation, how many tests
is it
are there repeatable that need to pass to be considered accepted?
I don't know the answer to that, although I'm going to suspect it is similar to what I do know, which is that in other testing types, you only need to do it once in order for it to get listed. In order to repeat the test, you would have to have something substantially different about the product in order to be able to repeat it. In other words, if it failed, you couldn't just say, well, I want to try it again. I think, I think maybe we didn't do something quite right and I want to try it again. You have to have something substantially different in order to try again. So similar to like a 1-hour wall test, you have to make sure that you install that puppy exactly right so that you can pass that test if you think you can. But there are no do-overs. You don't get to say, well, the person who installed this, was just a little off on the installation.
Yeah, Angie, some of these tests are one and done, like fire resistance testing. They can resubmit it if there's a change, but I would say that's also ups the dollar cost and time to be able to do that. On the other side, some items have to go through a number of cycles, really in like vibration and those kinds of things, or they have to last for so many hours before failure to be able to pass a criteria. So it really kind of depends on what's being tested for what kind of standard or groups of standards. Because here's something that most people don't realize: we call out a standard that we're going to list something to. However, what you may not know, that it may encompass an additional 10 to 20 other standards that will fall underneath that, and it has to meet all that criteria. It's not just the one; it's everything that's required underneath it to pass. And I think just a good note is ES, when they provide their recommendations, they're taking on product liability, just like UL does when they list a product or we verify a product. So it's not done lightly on an approval. We don't give them out automatically, because if the listing or the approval goes wrong, well, guess what? Your company is now the deep products for a liability lawsuit, and so just like ours is. And that's the business that we're in. So you'll never hear from a proprietary standpoint, this product failed 25 times before it was listed. That's immaterial. You never see that. You'll never hear it out of ES. You will never hear that out of UL or any other test lab. However, if it appears in their listing, you should be able to have the confidence to know that it passed the test. Otherwise, it would not be there, regardless of how many times it took to do it.
Yeah, and the other thing with the product verification, since there is no testing standard, this goes back to making sure that you're understanding what you're reading. If there's no testing standard, it really is up to you to decide whether or not how they tested it was appropriate for how it's being proposed in your jurisdiction. Weathering comes to mind just with Crystal, with your question. If weathering wasn't involved, and because there is no test standard, so they're testing it how they think it'll most appropriately be used. But let's say they want to do an exterior application in an area that has a lot of rainfall or is really dry or has a lot of wind, and if there was no weathering involved in the product, maybe it's not something that you accept for an exterior application in your community. So you get to decide whether or not the criteria that they use, I mean, they're taking their best guess on what would be approved and supported by most AHJs, or their best use case, because like Kelly said, it's not cheap. So they're not just gonna, they're not gonna get something or try to get approval for something that has a very, very narrow use for them. They want kind of the best case scenario where they can put really, their dollars to work in order to get things approved in communities where they're looking for them to be approved.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Angie before we thank her for joining us today? Okay, I don't see
thank you
more.
for having me.
Thank you very much, Angie. This has been a question and a topic that we've had on ES for as long as I've been on FSMC. So this is really the first time we've had somebody come in and give us their perspective, and somebody that's had a little bit of inside information on the organization. So I thank you for that, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you all. Talk to you soon. I'll stay on for a little while.
Okay. With that, we're going to move on with the rest of our agenda, and I'm pulling it back up here. We're going to move on to item number 3, opening remarks from the chair. That would be me. Just wanted to say I'm happy that code hearings are over. It was a very exhausting month. I know that some of you spent a lot of time viewing. Some of you spent time participating on committees. I spent 6 days back in the beautiful Country Club Hills, being sequestered in the ICC headquarters building there. I have to give it to ICC staff. Mike Pfeiffer and his team did an outstanding job. I'm sure a lot of us didn't really know exactly how this was all going to work out when we stepped in the door or when we logged on, but I think at the end of the process, it worked far better than I thought it was going to. Yes, it was long. Yes, it was different, but we got the job done, and we're in a public comment period now. And I hope that you all will take the opportunity to look at these proposals and submit public comments and watch the videos. You can get the videos online already. I did see Beth Tubbs is on here, and wanted to commend Beth Tubbs on the great job that she did leading the fire code team or committee. It was an exhaustive time for her, and it ultimately, I was very happy with the opportunity that we had to participate there. Some interesting code change proposals that were brought forward, a lot of great discussion, and it'll be interesting to see where some of the national discussion goes on some of these issues there. So with that, I am going to move on to, let me pull this back up here. Let's see, approval of minutes. I am looking for a motion to approve our minutes from the April 22nd meeting on Microsoft Teams.
This is Kara. I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Kara.
Second, Wassom.
Okay, second by Mark. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you very much. This is somewhat of an extended meeting. We tapped on another hour, half hour or so to give our work groups a little bit more time to expand on some of the work they've been doing. So we're going to jump on first with member recruitment. Andy King or Gary West, anything to report out of member recruitment right now?
We did have a meeting, Chief. I'll jump in and save the both of them, but we did have
Excellent.
a meeting, and we've set up a standing meeting that others have been invited to. And if you've been selected, you have been volunteered to be part of the membership committee. So more to come on that. I saw Gary on earlier. I did not see Andy, so that's why I jumped in.
Excellent. I knew Gary had you on.
Yeah, thanks, Carl. And I'm having a little signal problem in and out. Of course, I'm on vacation, so. But we did have a good meeting. We're going to continue to have meetings every month, and we would appreciate other people to join us and help us with membership. You don't have to be on the council to help. I think it's really important that we continue doing what we're doing now, and that's really the goal of the membership subcommittee.
Thank you, Gary. And presentation is like what Angie just provided, is a direct recommendation from our membership committee, and it has attracted a lot more people to our calls on a monthly basis. So thank you for the work that you've done there, and we look forward to seeing that continue in the future.
Chief Metz, just for note, the standing membership working group call is going to be every fourth Thursday of the month from 1:30 to 2 p.m. Eastern, and I'll put that in the chat as well. If folks would like to engage, they can just ping me back in the chat or email, and we'll be glad to add you to the list.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Carl. Great opportunity if you're not on the governing committee to get involved in, and we look forward to seeing that committee grow. I am going to jump back up because I did jump over one important item up in section 3 there. We have a new governing committee member, and I would like to take the opportunity to welcome Deputy Chief William Hyde from Rogers, Arkansas. He was confirmed by the ICC Board of Directors at last month's call, and he is going to be filling an IAFC MOU position representing the Southwestern division of IAFC. So welcome, Chief Hyde. We look forward to working with you, and we'll get you plugged into one or two of these work groups as soon as possible there. With that, we're going to jump on down to emerging issues and trends. Mike Desrochers, I know you've got stuff to report.
Yes, sir. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I think it's afternoon everywhere, maybe. Nice to see everybody. I really enjoyed the presentation from Angie. There's been a lot of discussion about it. I thought that was very nice to start the meeting out with that. So thank you all for arranging that. So I'm going to kind of echo what Gary West said a little bit. We're interested in getting members onto our emerging issue and trend work group. It's an exciting work group. There's a lot of stuff going on. So if you are interested, please contact either myself or Carl or Randy or Christine, and you can get linked up to our work group. We've had great participation here over the past 2-3 months, and like to continue that. So our work group has been meeting monthly. The last meeting we had, we actually received a few more topics that the group is working on. I know some of this is repetitive to the work group folks, but we have a new item called robotic storage that we're going to be discussing next month in our group. Those are the big robotic storage systems that you find in some of the larger warehouse operations. There's really no standard out there on these. It can impact fire service operations on the ground and so forth if there's a fire there. So we're going to be discussing that as a group and involving the Fire Service Membership Council to see where we go with that down the road. We also have a new topic called indoor fire pits. Kind of sounds a little odd, but that's what they're called, indoor fire pits. You can find them online. They use like, Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, but some type of alcohol base to fuel these fire pits. So basically they're portable. You can lift them up, you put them on your kitchen table, your coffee table in your living room, end tables, wherever you want, and you can light them and they give you the nice indoor fire pit look. And Randy, we did discuss the CO alarm location this item yesterday in our monthly meeting, and I'll get more information from you specifically as we move forward with this, but I did bring it up to the group to further discuss down the road. The group, Kelly and I right now have working on a PowerPoint program that is geared at kind of selling what our work group is doing. We are going to get into some of the items that we have discussed as a group, what we did with them, how we interacted with the other work groups, what the other work groups did with the material we provided. And it's also going to provide an avenue for people to submit their emerging issue and trends to us. And as you know, we have an Excel spreadsheet that has all our topics, all the links to the applications that came with the topics. And we're going to be working with Carl and others to get this on the Fire Service Membership Council webpage, which is a larger IT initiative, but a place where all of you as members can go and view the work that your work groups are doing and involved with. I would also add that we have a placeholder at the NASM annual conference in September. Kelly and I will be instructing an hour and 15-minute class on emerging issues and trends to all the state fire marshals, which will be nice. So I'm soliciting all of you to attend this great event. It's in Stowe, Vermont. It's 8 miles down the road from where I live. So come join us. You'd have a good time. Excellent 3 or 4 days worth of instruction. Great networking with all the state fire marshals across the country. And we're very fortunate that we can be able to run this emerging issue and trends program there. So that's kind of a short rundown of what we've been doing. And again, if you're interested in joining us, get hold of us.
Mike, you might want to just make mention real quick that we're also going to do that same class at the ICC ABM. So it's really the same course that we're both doing, and hopefully we'll both be able to present it at the annual meeting also.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly.
Excellent report, Mike. The one item that I did bring up with Mike when I spoke with him earlier this week was the issue of CO alarms. If you take the time to go back and look at any of the video, I highly recommend that you look at the video for code change proposal F102. It was probably at least an hour long video of the testimony for people that were talking about children that they've lost, loved ones, family members, as a result of CO emergencies in hotels, residential occupancies, and other types of buildings. It was a very moving experience to be sitting on the committee, listening to that type of testimony, and to have to evaluate the code change proposal and come back with a disapproval because basically we just felt that the proposal needs more work. It's too far reaching for what was submitted. And I think that this issue is one that is real. It reminded me a lot of what we went through to get fire sprinklers into the code. But you know, this is one that is not going to go away. It will continue to come back. I think that they probably will be submitting some public comments to bring it back in the fall. It is just one of those issues that there is definite need to expand some of those areas of the code and evaluate what is appropriate for CO-related detection systems. A lot of these revolved around hotels and pool equipment, which tells me that there definitely is an issue that needs to be evaluated and discussed. It was the only code change proposal when they could tell by the direction the discussion was going with committee members that it was going to lead to a disapproval. We had people trying to queue up to get back in line to testify again, to where the moderator had to come back and say, hey, testimony's over. That's how passionate these people are with some of the foundations on behalf of loved ones. So I think it's important for Fire Service Membership Council to be involved in understanding the issue, understanding the code change proposal, and trying to help aid the discussion on determining what is an appropriate level of protection in what types of buildings, and just be aware of the global discussion that's going to occur from this current code change proposal right now. So I thank Mike for talking about that within his group there. And if anything else, as we see public comments come in, we may have an opportunity to have some review of that and then have some discussion about amongst ourselves based on some of our own experience with responding to some of those types of incidents.
Randy, if I might on that.
Absolutely, Kelly.
In our discussion yesterday, as an emerging trend, we kind of felt that it was not so much an emerging trend, it's a regulatory issue. And the FCAC, in talking to Beth Tubbs, looks like they might be picking up a task group who hopefully will work with the proponents to develop the appropriate language necessary for passage during the public comment period. I mean, they basically tried to say everything everywhere needs CO, which is way outside the bound. And yet what we have in the code is appropriate, but maybe not quite as expansive as it should be. Even the dog agrees with me, as you can tell.
Yeah.
So that's where it's headed at the moment. And the next FCAC meeting, that probably will be an issue. And that's really where people should weigh in at.
Yeah, from the code change proposal itself, absolutely, you're correct. The FCAC is the proper place for that. For us, it was just an awareness of where the discussion is going nationally. It was a very extreme proposal that was put in. I could see that the minute I started reviewing code change proposals. So I'm glad that FCAC is taking up the issue to work with the proponent on it. And that when we start to see, and this is what Mike and I talked about, so many states that are passing their own legislation to direct placement and when and where, that tells me that the regulations that we have may not be covering all areas that we're seeing in some of the other state jurisdictions that are taking it to the next step there, and finding a way to get our own regulatory code to catch up to where some of the legislation going would limit the amount of new legislation driving that force right there. So I think that's all I need to say on that. We're going to move on to the Public Awareness Committee. Christine.
Hi, everyone. So I wanted to give a few more minutes to our standard report just to highlight a few things that we've been working on in the public awareness work group. But first, I wanted to let you know, if you haven't, if you're not aware already of what the work group goals are for this year. We started with the year, and we've already accomplished it, is to create a hot topic message reminding people about UL's Close Your Door. message and program that we quickly did. We didn't have to reinvent the wheel. It's already such a great program. We want to just redirect people back to that program, and public educators, just as a reminder. Sorry, I'm looking at my list. So also on the list was creating an informational document to assist Ahjs in preparing and promoting a residential fire sprinkler ordinance in their jurisdiction. If anyone, and we haven't gotten there yet, that's still on the list, but if anyone has been through that or has created documents or informational handouts for fire board, council member type groups, governing officials groups, that you're willing to share with us, we'd love to see what you have. I know that there's a lot of different approaches that we could take across the country with this topic. So we just want to try to get some higher level thought processes and objectives to everyone. So that's on our plate for this year. But again, I'm reaching out if anyone does have any documents that you're willing to share that either worked for you or even advice of what didn't work for you. Please reach out to myself at least, or anyone else on the public awareness work group to let us know what your feedback is, so we know maybe some approaches to take. We were talking about producing a document about smoke alarms related to new technologies and legislative updates, and that's kind of a moving target, and there's already things that are out there, so it's still on our plate, but it's a little bit lower down that we wanted to put a couple above that in terms of the number of goals that we had. For those of you who, separate goal, for those of you who are signed into our Twitter feed, every day this month, we have had a Fire Service Membership Council tweets in recognition of Building Safety Month based on each of the weekly topics. So hopefully you've seen those. I've been looking, I've signed up and I get that daily tweet. So hopefully that is creating good messages and with a bunch of links to different topics that the users can click on and get a lot of great information. We will be, come October, be doing the tweets again for Fire Prevention Month, but that of course is a little later in the year, so we have some time for that. The one thing that I wanted to mention with regard to the close your door message that we produced, as well as the two previous ones of inflatable spray booth and fire safety on construction sites. Those are all documents that have been finalized, and we are in the process of getting those distributed to not only the governing council members, but to all that are in the Fire Service Membership Council and beyond, and our external partners to be able to pass on those messages for both technical information as well as public awareness and public information, so that it will help Ahjs, give them a little bit more in their toolbox to be able to educate their communities about some of the topics close to our hearts within the Fire Service Membership Council. But the current goal that we're working on now, we just had a meeting earlier this month, and we're going to start working on, and you've heard me say this before, that we want to work on updating the Fire Service Membership Council webpage. It is pretty static right now, and we find that it's a bit difficult to maneuver through as an end user, and just trying to get to the location of our meeting minutes and any kind of educational messages or training opportunities or membership information that we are producing out of the membership council. It's really difficult to find right now, or find a place to even put it. So we're going to be evaluating what is there, what do we want it to look like, and then we'll be working with Carl, through Carl, to the web, and I don't know if this is the right term, but the website group in ICC marketing to be able to see what can we do and what we can't. So this is a shout out to all of the work groups. If you have ideas of how you would like to have your particular work group information highlighted within the webpage, please let us know. We're at the beginning stages and we would like to make it very engaging and all-inclusive for our membership to be able to review and get information easily within the webpage. So that's what we're working on right now. The last thing is I just want to echo what has been said a couple of times already. We are always interested in participation by members of the membership council in the public awareness work group. We do have a standing meeting on the second Thursday at 1:30 Eastern. So if you are interested, you can let me know, or please let Carl know, or put your email address in the chat and we'll get you on the Microsoft Teams meeting group list so that you'll get our meeting notices. And with that, I will open it up if anyone has any questions. And if not, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Christine. Excellent report. Thanks for all the great work you've done this week or this month during Building Safety Month. I like those tweets going out. Mark Wassom, Training and Education.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks, Randy. I'll also just kind of start with an overview of some of the things we're working on, of our ongoing regular business. Especially for those that don't know maybe what our committee focuses on. Obviously it's training and education, but to provide some more clarification, we want to help to prepare additional educational classes. One of our main focuses and our goals is the annual business meeting, but something we're working on now is to try to get the Fire Service Membership Council out in front of more folks and partner up with more organizations so that we can let more people know what we do and what some of our capabilities and strengths are, and ultimately just to focus on the overall goal of the committee, and that's to get the fire service more involved with the ICC. So that's one of our big things. We're working on developing a list or a catalog of high quality classes that we can put together on pretty quick notice for different organizations and in different environments. So we're working hard on that. And we want to try to use our Fire Service Membership Council members as instructors when we can. And once again, just to try to get our folks in front of more people so they can learn about us. So, just from my perspective, I've been on this committee for a couple of years and honestly didn't know much about it before then. And I know there's lots of other folks like that maybe don't know what we do. So we're going to try to work on that and work with the other working groups such as membership to support that. So another big piece of what we're trying to do is on professional development, and that's working with the Professional Development Committee with the ICC and the Chief Knowledge Officer. We want to see what we can do to provide additional professional development courses for the fire service. We hear a lot of feedback that a lot of the classes are pretty building code focused, and that's true. If you look at the list of what you can take for continuing education, certifications, it's pretty heavy on the building codes, and not a bad thing, but we want to work together to develop more stuff that the fire service folks can do. So that's a big thing for us. Another topic that's come up is the concept of working towards a fire-based master code professional designation or certification. So if you've ever looked at that, you've got to know a whole lot of building code stuff to achieve that certification. It can be pretty tough for our fire service folks. So we're going to work on that and see what we can do. So, but with that, I'll just share some of our upcoming events. We've been working on some courses for the National Fire Sprinkler Association and their annual meeting that's coming up October 5th through the 7th in Las Vegas. We have 3 courses on the agenda for that right now that are being provided by the membership council. One is going to be on distilleries and protection of the fire hazards in distilleries. That's going to be by John LeBlanc with FM Global. We've got a class on fire protection for plant extraction. That'll be myself and Tracy Harvey from Spokane Valley Fire. And our 3rd class is tall mass timber buildings with Ray O'Brockie from the American Wood Council. So I think we've got some good opportunities we're putting forward for that group. I'll also mention the ABM and some of the topics we're working on for that. That's September 19th through the 22nd in Pittsburgh. We're looking at a Hard Rock Cafe construction fire or a construction disaster course. It was mentioned earlier, we're going to have the emerging trends class, and also a wildland urban interface course is another one we're looking at. Also on the agenda that we're putting together is the potential for kind of an open forum during one of the lunches. That'll be a little dependent on what the final format ends up being for the annual meeting. But we're going to try to have that open forum and talk about construction fire safety as well as energy storage. So more to come on that. That's still in the works, and we hope to have information on that very soon. I'll just mention another one coming up, and it's coming up quick. It's next week. The International Association of Fire Chiefs, their Community Risk Reduction Leadership Conference. That's next week. It's a virtual conference. I believe you can still register. It's kind of a steal. I think it's $99 for 3 days of good information and training, but that's May 25th through the 27th. We don't have any courses specifically offered by the committee, but some of our members are contributing to that conference, so it'd be a good one to catch. I'll just wrap up here with kind of a looking forward idea. We do want to expand our interaction of our committee, not just the training and education work group, but the committee as a whole. So we're going to try to come up with other organizations we can partner with. Some of the ideas are the Congressional Fire Service Institute, National Association of State Fire Marshals was mentioned earlier. Got some partnership going on with them. Obviously the IAFC, Fire and Life Safety Section, and FRI. So we would just be interested in hearing from those that might have other ideas for organizations we might be able to partner with and kind of expand our outreach. And I'll give a little Me Too testimony here from what the other work group chairs have talked about. We're looking for new members as well. We've got a small but mighty group that is putting this stuff together, and we would welcome more help on that and more ideas. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me or Carl, and we can get you in on those meetings. Our standing meeting is the first Wednesday of every month at 11 a.m. Central. So be glad to plug you into that. And I'll just wrap up and say that, like I said on the organizations, if there's anything you would like to recommend our group to look into, please reach out, whether that's an organization we can partner with, a new idea for a training class, or professional development. I'd be glad to hear that. Sit in on our group or just reach out to me, and be glad to take a look at that and move it forward. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mark, for a great report. You guys are really doing a lot of outreach and getting involved in things and expanding that footprint. So continue the great work. And if you're looking for a group to jump on and tag onto, Mark is really moving this in a positive direction, and he can really use your help. He's got some great people helping him right now, but training and education is much bigger than 3 or 4 people can handle on their own. So thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Randy.
With that, thank you very much for all of our work groups, especially the committee chairs there. A lot of great work, and this is a great testament to really building up the direction of our membership council and getting some targeted, specific work group areas to see the fruits of your efforts there. So Moving on to reports from officers, I do not believe I saw Mr. Bryant on the attendee list, but I'm going to throw it out there anyways in case I did miss him. Bill Bryant, are you here? Okay. With that, let's see here. Is Jim Brown still with us?
You bet, Chief Metz, I'm here.
Director Brown, would you like to give us a small board update?
You betcha I would. I've got just a few items for the council. First off, President Wheeler texted me. He sends his regrets. He was called away to another meeting. On a more local note, the state of Wyoming is poised to adopt the 21 codes effective July 1st this year. Wyoming building officials, Wyoming fire marshals had their first face-to-face meeting, and I realized I missed it, but I didn't realize how much until I sat down with good friends and all last week, and I'm like, wow, man, I really missed this. But it wasn't all work, because I did spend a day fly fishing with my good friend Jack Applegate on the Bighorn River, which rounded out an epic week. More on the board side. The board is going to start traveling again in July. The board is going to be in Boston the 15th through the 18th of July, our first face-to-face meeting in over a year. So I'm looking forward to seeing them in Boston. In relation to the ABM, which has been mentioned several times, the registration is going to come open sometime in the next couple weeks. I'm sure you all obviously get notified of that. So look forward to that. And in relation to that, if you want to jot this down, the main host hotel is going to be the Westin Pittsburgh. And to ensure you get the right Westin, it's the one that has the connecting bridge right to the convention center. So if you want to be in the hub of activity. Next item, Building Safety Month. We're in the second half of that here in Wyoming. Our governor did sign a building safety proclamation, as well as at the national level with President Biden. I don't know if you all saw the press release or not, but it's always cool to get one from the White House. And with that, Chief Metz, that's my brief report. And if anybody has any questions, don't let me off cheap.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions for Director Brown?
I'm getting off easy, Randy.
We are not too hard on you, Jim. Thanks for being here.
You bet.
Director Wiese, do you have anything to add?
The only thing I would add is that there was a tremendous outpouring of applications for the new IECC process, and our next board meeting, which is not in person. We do have one in between now and Boston. We'll be looking at the recommendation of those applicants, and not guaranteeing we'll make a decision, but that's on our docket. And I think there were over 300 applications. So it was a tremendous amount of work for those tasked with reviewing the apps and figuring out a good cross section of folks to be on that new standard.
It was actually over 350 as I had a chance to review all of them.
Well, then my many thanks to you, Randy, for putting your time into that.
Which actually equated to almost 500, because a lot of them applied for both residential and commercial. So we rated them separately, but it was one of those other duties that I didn't know came along with being chair of one of the membership councils. So my first experience with that, and of course it had to be one area where I'm not a subject matter expert in. So it was interesting to learn.
Well, thank you very much for your help with that.
Wonderful. I am going to pass because I've already made my comments, and open the floor up to Christine to see if she has any vice chair comments.
Yeah, just a quick one. I just wanted to let the membership know that Randy and I participated in a Meet Your Membership Council's webinar presentation type format with all of the other membership councils. I thought it went really well. I appreciated the opportunity that we had as the Fire Service Membership Council to talk about all the great work that we're doing and how we're progressing. But it was also to learn about all of the other membership councils and what work they're doing. So if you attended, I hope you share my same feelings. If you didn't, it is videoed or was recorded, so you can find it. I'm still trying to find some information of where videos are placed within ICC's website, but we can get that information out to everyone if you did miss that presentation and are interested in hearing what the other membership councils are doing as well. So that is all I have for today, Randy.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Christine. It was a great opportunity to get some exposure for the membership councils. I want to thank Hope Medina from the Sustainability Membership Council for all the work that she did on pulling that together. And with that, I'd like to give our members from the Building Membership Council. We're joined currently by Dan Dockery and Ed Lazinski, who also participated, to see if they have anything they'd like to report to us on behalf of Building. Dan?
I won't take any time at all, Randy. Thanks again for the offer, and thanks to Director Wiese for the ES update. I think it's a marvelously untapped tool, not just for fire services, but all for our residential and trades building in the United States. And I'll say the one thing that means the most to me about, as I call them, ESR reports. When a code official goes on to a job, that code official pretty much owns that job in most cases, because a lot of times we find out that we're as knowledgeable as anybody on the code site in an overall capacity. We certainly have regulatory authority over them, and conducting ourselves in a professional manner in a way that we help that contractor or that tradesman or that designer do their job. That's what we ought to be about. And I found out in North Carolina, where we're from, that people just are totally unfamiliar with ESR reports. And so somebody early said it's a great tool. It is. It's another wonderful tool to put in our toolbox for us to use when we find people who have a lack of knowledge or a deficiency in their process where we know something from ESR would benefit them. Let's promote the program. Let's send it out to our chapters everywhere. Let's send it out to our membership councils. Let's, my goodness, what a great asset, and what a way to mark yourself as a professional by going on to a job site and offering something they didn't already have. It's just a good way to do business. And so I really do appreciate y'all letting me sit in on this, and thanks so much, Angie, for putting this thing in the forefront of our focus. And that's all. Thanks, Randy. I appreciate it.
Dan, you always have great words of wisdom, and I appreciate the opportunity to work with the Building Membership Council over the past 2 years.
Randy, you muted yourself.
Can you hear me now?
I got you.
Excellent. I was just commenting that I really appreciated the opportunity to work closely with the Building Membership Council on some initiatives over the past 2 years, getting to know Dan and Ed. And I believe Dan has announced that he's going to be retiring in July, correct, Dan?
June 30th.
June 30th.
June 30th
okay.
is my last day. And I'll be honest with you, it's just that it's time. I'm not going away. Y'all have got my phone numbers. You got my email addresses, both personal and business. This is something that I have made such a huge part of my life forever. And I hate to sound trite, but I have to say it all the time, because it's truly a blessing to be able to have had a career where you've made great friends, where all of your friends have educated you, just like y'all have done me so many, many times, and the builders have done, and then be able to go home at the end of a day or the end of a career and look around you at the built environment and say, my goodness, what we did made a difference for the people who share this same community, this same hometown with me. You can't put money in the bank worth more than that. It's just a great thing. And again, the part about making friends, who was it I saw? Gosh, and I can't remember his name, a California dude, a friend just had an anniversary. Who was that? Geez, he had all these pretty pictures he shared on Facebook.
I don't know, Dan. I can't remember who.
Happy anniversary, Randy, to you and your beloved.
Thank you, brother. On behalf of the Fire Service Membership Council, I want to thank you for your contributions. You have done a great job and made a difference, and I hope that you'll find a way to stay engaged and involved with us, just doing it on your time rather than on the man's time. So enjoy. With that, I'm going to jump down to Carl Fippinger, the man that makes it all happen for us.
Thank you, Chief Metz. Happy Building Safety Month, everybody. And I've got a couple of quick announcements on that here at the end. But what I wanted to do is just give you a quick update on something that I attended yesterday. So the Congressional Fire Service Institute, or CFSI, held its twice annual National Advisory Council meeting yesterday. So I'm the representative from ICC that attends those meetings for us. And yesterday, we were glad to be able to join into a resolution with our partners at the NFPA, the National Volunteer Fire Council, as well as the IAFC, expressing concern about the need to educate and equip first responders with information and tools to address the challenges by emerging technologies such as electrical vehicles and others. So we joined on that. It was passed unanimously at the NAC level and is being forwarded on to the CFSI Board of Directors for action, and it should be fully passed here within the next couple of weeks. So the idea behind that is really to educate, inform, facilitate the information sharing about a whole wide variety of things. Lithium-ion batteries, distributed energy systems, including microgrids, solar, EV charging systems, ESS, and those types of things. And also the key here that we were really happy to join with our partners on was just that it promotes the use of the current consensus-based codes. So for us, that means the two most recent additions of the I codes, and then the others at the NFPA and other places, the standards that apply. So that was a very good result. Just an informational piece that retired chief from the Mesa Fire Department, Chief Denny Compton, received the Art Gladfelter Distinguished Service Award yesterday. It was a little late in coming, but that's a National Fallen Firefighters Foundation Award. So Chief Sarnicki and representatives from Gladfelter Insurance were proud to present that to Denny, and his wife and son were in attendance for that at home with him in Arizona. I wanted to check and make sure I saw, before I jumped on for my part, I saw Robbie Dawson and Bob Sullivan were on from NFPA, and I just wanted to call them out to listen to this piece for a minute, because their counterpart, colleague, and my colleague as well, Seth Statler from the NFPA, who heads their government relations shop here in the DC area, jumped on and talked a little bit at the end of the CFSI NAC meeting yesterday about copyrights in the codes. About 2 years ago now, the ICC led a similar resolution to the one that I just read to you, but it was about copyrights and protecting intellectual property. So Robbie and Bob, I don't know if you guys got those as talking points the same way that Seth may have as well, but the way that it was relayed from Seth is that this issue came up at a recent NFPA Metro Chiefs section meeting, and that there was some concern that was reiterated about intellectual property and copyright. So I just wanted to kind of remind everybody, since that was a footnote to our meeting yesterday before Chief Compton received his award, and remind you that that issue is still out there. I know our board and many of our senior leaders here in the organization are certainly aware of that. We continue to work the issue, but wanted to bring it up as a reminder. And there is a resolution out there that I can put in the chat about that in the case that you're interested. But Robbie, Bob, if you're on, I just wanted to offer you the opportunity to comment on that, in case that was something that Ray or Seth had passed along to you to make sure was out there this month. Any comments from you guys?
Hey, Carl, it's Robbie.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have the specific details of it. You know, I'm sure it's going to flow back to us in regional operations, what comes out of that or what's coming out of that. But we do know that the folks at headquarters are kind of keeping that on the front burner as something to be aware of going forward.
Yeah, gotcha. And I'm, sorry to put you on the spot. I just want to make sure that, that both of you are on these calls all the time, and I want to make sure you had a chance to kind of speak to it since you were here. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah, man, no worries. Okay, so wrapping up here, Building Safety Month, week 4 is disaster preparedness. I'll be moderating a panel coming up next week on Tuesday, May 25th, 2 p.m. Eastern time, and I'm going to put the registration information in the chat box as well. It's the topic is the future of building codes and hazard mitigation. That is a very big deal for us these days, particularly given the focus that FEMA and state and local emergency management organizations have on being able to kind of shift risk from the disaster recovery and response side of the house into mitigation and kind of pay risk down early. So good news on that is that we're offering CEUs for it, and I'll be joined by ICC Vice President Cindy Davis, Eric Letvin, who is FEMA's Deputy Administrator for Mitigation, Ed Latch, who many of you know, who is the Chief of the Building Sciences Branch at FEMA, as well as Dan Kanuski, who's the former Deputy Administrator of FEMA, now Managing Director of Public Sector for Marsh McLennan, and is very actively engaged in helping the public sector manage that level of risk from within a private sector insurance organization. So that's 2 to 3 on Tuesday the 25th, and I'll put the registration information in there. We've also got another webinar coming up in the first week of June that many of you may be interested in. The link is not posted yet, but I'll send it out to the membership council when it is. It's going to be on Section 1206 Disaster Recovery Reform Act of 2018. And what that speaks to is basically the public assistance program at the Federal Emergency Management Agency has now made provisions for building code officials and building code related activities, including enforcement, additional help, surge staffing, resources, including IT resources and those kinds of things. That's available to each of you and your organizations for up to 180 days following the declaration. Okay, go ahead, man. I already got them down. That was pretty good. I like that. Never been interrupted. I wanted to be interrupted by Randy's plumber. Was that your plumber?
That was the plumber.
Awesome. So the new program is DRA Section 1206 related. FEMA has a policy out, which they've given a number and other things. But anyway, our job is twofold. One is as the Code Council to engage our members, such as you and our building code official partners, in the process and promote you as stakeholders in this new process, and 2, to get out the information and the word about this new program and your eligibility for it, so that it is used. So that'll be coming up first week of June, and I believe it's going to be on Thursday of the first week of June, so a couple weeks from now, and I'll be moderating that again. We'll have 2 members of FEMA's staff. We're going to have Jim Olk from Garland, Texas, who's one of our members who's pretty heavily engaged. He's a building official there in Garland, but also very heavily engaged in the state of Texas on the damage assessment piece. And then we're working on getting someone from Texas Division of Emergency Management's Public Assistance Shop to come on for that one as well. So I'll send the information out. That's my report, and I'll send it back to you, Chief Metz. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Carl. Let's see here, going back to my agenda. Okay, we've gone to ongoing business, item number 6, report from the Fire Service Membership Council Nominating Committee. As you know, we are trying to fill a vacancy in an ICC MOU position on the FSMC. We did converse and consult with Carla Higgs, that normally handles our election processes, determine the best process for us to do an off-year cycle election process and still remain in compliance with our charter. So with that, we did convene a nominating committee to review the individuals that submitted applications to fill this one vacancy. That nominating committee was chaired by Michael Desrochers. Thank you very much, Mr. Desrochers. And also included Tim Deal and Chief Robert Buxton. Whenever we create a nominating committee, I try to have equal representation of all three MOU agencies, ICC, IAFC, and NASFM. And these three individuals did fulfill that diversity issue right there. With that, I'm going to read a nominee report, at which time you will be receiving an email from Carl Fippinger sometime later today that will be an election process. The governing committee will be conducting the election of this particular individual in accordance with our charter. And I want to thank the 6 individuals that did submit their names. They were all extremely qualified, and we would be fortunate to have any of them on the nominating or on the governing committee. So if you did not become the nominee, I encourage you to look for opportunities again in 2022 when we have quite a few positions that will be up for re-election at that point. So with that, I will read the report from the nominating committee that was forwarded to me by Chair Desrochers. The Fire Service Membership Council Nominating Committee reviewed 6 applications received for the vacant ICC position on the Fire Service Membership Council Governing Committee in accordance with Section 6.9 of the FSMC Charter. Nominating committee members reviewed the applications and convened a virtual team meeting on May 7th, 2021. The nominating committee would like to thank all of the applicants who applied. There was certainly a lot of interest and enthusiasm to join the FSMC Governing Committee. All of the applications received were well written, and each candidate had unique skill sets that would be beneficial. After much discussion, the nominating committee recommends Division Chief Fire Marshal John T. Lane from the Anne Arundel County, Maryland Fire Department. Mr. Lane's vast experience, educational background, and extensive fire service career will benefit the FSMC. So I would like to thank Mike Desrochers, Tim Deal, and Chief Buxton for their service on the nominating committee. We will be putting forward the name of John T. Lane to the governing committee to vote. You will be either voting in affirmative, in against, or you can abstain from the vote in the email that you will be receiving from Carl. You will also see the names of the other individuals that were evaluated by the nominating committee in that email that you will receive. And there's a time frame in which we need the vote, and once that has been done, Carl will tally the votes and determine if Mr. Lane has been duly elected by the governing committee to fill our vacancy. Would you like to add anything else to that, Carl?
Sure thing, Chief Metz. The email was just transmitted to the governing committee, so if you'd please reply back by tomorrow at noon Eastern, I'll tally the votes, and what I'd like to do is be able to get the information out to all applicants to let them know the results here by close of business tomorrow. So that's the goal. So if you could just do the quick email reply, do it individually. We're asking you to not reply all. Just for confidentiality purposes, I'll tally up the votes and we'll get those out to leadership and to the applicants that were not selected. So thanks so much for that.
Thank you, Carl. This has been an interesting process to do this. I also want to thank Carla Higgs for her guidance on this particular issue right here. Finding a way to do this to get somebody sitting in the seat as quickly as possible and still be in accordance with our charter has been a learning process for everybody. I do not believe that we have any other positions that will be coming up for election in 2022 from our other 2 MOU agencies. We do have 2 individuals that will be terming off from NASFM, and they will be putting forward names to fill those 2 vacancies, which the ICC Board of Directors will then consider for affirmation. But as you know, we only elect the positions that actually come from the International Code Council. So the process is different for where the vacancy occurs. But I do believe that next year we will have some ICC positions that will either be up for re-election or will be turning off. So a lot of different opportunities for people to get involved with the governing committee in coming years. With that, we're going to move on to item B of new business, legislative update. This is an opportunity for anybody to be able to share any legislation that they've seen either pop up in their state or national legislation. I know some individuals here follow some of the national legislative issues to determine things of interest to the fire service. So I'm going to open the floor up right now and see if anybody has anything to offer on what's going on in their shop for different proposed legislation. Okay, hearing none. I will actually offer up on behalf of the state of California. We are actively looking at probably about 300 different bills that are moving through our state system here. We are limiting legislation in California this year to all things related to housing, WUI, and COVID-related actions. So a lot of the bills that we normally would see are not coming into cycle this year. We have various different bills that are affecting accessory dwelling units, trying to increase our housing stock, bills that involve streamlining submittal processes for things such as photovoltaic or energy storage systems. We have a lot of bills that are directly responding to construction in our wildfire threat zones, what we call our very high fire hazard severity zones. And a lot of that is based off of our fire experience that we've had over the last couple of years here in California. We are opposing some of those bills because we feel they are far too restrictive. We feel that the code does permit and has addressed how we can safely develop in our WUI areas. We do utilize what we call Chapter 7A in California. We have not yet adopted the WUI code here, but we feel that we would like to continue to allow our technical code experts to drive the development requirements within what we consider the urban interface area, and not let legislation put moratoriums on any and all construction in there that would go against our adopted code. So there are some areas that we feel we are supporting bills that are directly aimed at wildfire research. We want California to be the pulse point there for all things research related, as far as how can we continue to develop in our urban interface areas safely. And there are quite a few bills that are putting forward some grant funds. There is one currently right now, a bill that would actually give tax credits for anybody that upgrades their attic venting with wildfire approved venting. Vent size was an issue that came up in our WUI code this year in this current cycle. So I know that California is looking for ways to try to influence and encourage individuals to take on some of the home hardening themselves. At the same time, evaluating some of our communities for things that they need to do, should do. We have a bill that's actually already been approved that's coming into play right now in the state of California, which creates another disclosure when you go to sell your home and requires an evaluation from the local fire agency on whether or not your home has the necessary hardening, and then steps that could be taken in order to improve the survivability of your home, similar to some of the other disclosures that states have taken on when a home goes into escrow. So with that, if nobody else has anything else to offer, If you have specific interest on any legislative issues coming out of California, please hit me up directly.
Randy, Kevin Reinertson here to the group.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Kevin Reinertson, Riverside County Fire. We've also been actively involved with California's Board of Forestry regulations. It's Title 24. They have a statewide impact, but I know there's a lot of jurisdictions or even states that look at some of those provisions, and they have to do with access water, where you can't go. Board of Forestry is going through a major rewrite right now of their regulations. They're in 45-day comment period. But they're expected to go live sometime this year. So those jurisdictions or states that may look at that for guidance and what they're doing in their area, just a heads up that there's a major update coming.
Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, if you're looking at anything in California, it's helpful if you reach out to somebody like Kevin or myself that have experience in dealing with that, because a lot of it is not as it seems, and we're always having changes and updates made to some of the stuff that you may be finding on the interweb. So with that, I'm going to move on to next item on my agenda there, which is Governing Committee work session. And we've kind of been working this in throughout most of our discussion today. This was going to be an opportunity for us to have expanded conversation and discussion on some issues. So I'm going to, kind of use this as an open forum. If anybody has any specific topics that they want to expand on, now would be the time. We've got about 15 minutes left in our time that we set aside for this meeting right here. And we're nearing the end of the agenda. So anything that our governing committee or any of our guests would like to see discussed currently right now?
Randy, the only other thing that I bring up here too is just to repeat that it is still my understanding that the governing committee will be meeting at the annual business meeting out in Pittsburgh this year. So I believe the calendar dates are going to be, there'll be a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday profile, I think, this year for sure. But those dates are, give me 1 second here, I believe September 19, 20, 21. So the governing committee will be meeting somewhere in those dates. We're still waiting kind of on a firm announcement of when that will be, but I believe, as you and I have discussed, that'll likely be a 3-hour meeting, with the first hour being a joint meeting with all the MCs, and then probably 2 hours on our own to be able to chat. So that'll be our first in-person opportunity if the governing committee is able to join, and others that are on the call. All other interested parties are, of course, welcome to join us in Pittsburgh, September 19, 2021, Sunday through Tuesday.
Thank you, Carl. I hope all of the governing committee members have that on their calendar now. It'll be the first opportunity that we would have had to meet in person since Las Vegas in 2019. So it'll be nice to get back into an in-person meeting with this group. This kind of served as what would have been our spring in-person meeting today, which is why we expanded the time a little bit there. But definitely will be nice to get back into a sense of normalcy for our biannual meetings. I look forward to seeing you all in Pittsburgh on Sunday morning, the 19th. Anything else from any of our other members?
Randy, Paige Doherty, Thornton, Colorado.
Paige, you have the floor.
I was just wondering if there had been any discussion by ICC on the voting process after the public comment hearings. I'm guessing that we'll have voting gizmos at the public comment hearing to vote with, but in the last vote that I took for representing Thornton, it was to get in to vote, you had to go into a particular item number, go through it, mark it, and then get out of it, and then try to get your computer to recycle to be able to vote on the next issue, on the next comment. So what I'm wondering is, and it took me, and maybe I'm just slow, but it took me like 5 minutes or more on each item to vote on it. And that's a concern, because that's for who knows how many things we'll be voting on, but probably in excess of 100 or more. And that's a lot of time spent trying to vote for those on those items. So just wondering if there was maybe a more efficient way, or if that was going to be the same way. Maybe Jim Brown has a idea about that, but just trying to get an idea of how much time I'm going to tell my boss I'm going to be spending voting in this next cycle.
Paige, you're talking about CDP access and voting online, I'm assuming? Paige?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I'm assuming you're referring to CDP access and voting online?
Yeah.
Okay. I have not had any discussions with Mike Pfeiffer or any of his team, nor have I heard any rumor that things will be different from years past. So, unless one of our board members has anything that they'd like to offer, I would assume that the process will be quite similar to what you've done before. If you're in person, you will be voting with a gizmo, and they will be taking voting on public comments in person, and then moving it over to CDP access after the hearing process in Pittsburgh.
Makes it more important to get to Pittsburgh.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, Randy,
this is Angie.
I can offer a little insight.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Oh, thanks, Angie. CDP access, guys, is really not that old. It was one of the first things in the first few years that I tackled on the board. We're continually upgrading that and making it better. But keep in mind, we got it online, but we're continuing to refine that. As far as the voting, I really haven't had any major delays. That took me 5 minutes. There was a proposal to be able to vote on many things simultaneously, and the board considered that, where you could go down and just check boxes or check all if you wanted to vote everything that the committee voted. And the board decided that was probably not in the best interest of the membership. So, again, it didn't take me 5 minutes to vote on something, and I have to, wonder maybe it's a connection speed or something like that. So I hope that helps shed just a little bit of light on it. Angie, you were going to say?
Yeah, no, just that we have not talked about any changes, but what you're describing does seem to be not the norm. So I would encourage you to reach out to somebody through ICC to figure out what's going on there, because that's certainly not my experience, and it didn't sound like it was Jim or Randy's either. So I don't know if that is, something with how you were signed in or your account or something, but I would encourage you to reach out to somebody at ICC staff to get that taken care of. But the Jim's right. Even though it's online, we still want our voters to be educated on what they're voting on. So it's not meant to be a speed process, but what you're describing doesn't sound like it was working properly.
Thank you for your comments.
Well, I'll say if it only took you 5 minutes for each code change proposal, that was about 15 minutes faster than the committee action hearing spent on that proposal there, Paige. So you're
at least 15 minutes faster.
Yeah, you're time ahead.
6 of the longest days of my life.
Yep. In regards to voting, I will also say that the long-term code development committee has going to be making those or some recommended changes to the board for consideration. I'm sure that the board will be getting those probably in the next meeting or two. I see Jim waving his hand there.
Yeah, Randy, it's funny you mentioned that. I just received the recommendation from the long-term code development committee sent to myself and Dave Spencer. I chair the bylaws committee. Dave is my co-chair, and during this meeting, I was reading down through this recommendation. So that's now going to go to the bylaws committee and then a full report to the board. So that is in process.
There you go. And I know one of the issues that they did tackle is voting, governmental voting members, you know, what qualifies, what doesn't, what should it look like. And there is a lot of different thoughts from a lot of different people on how that process could be changed or improved. There, Jim's got a copy of it right there. The board will have a lot of decisions to make as they divulge this information. I was a participant in most all of the calls, not as a member of the Gold Ribbon Committee, but as forget what Pfeiffer called us, active participants or interested parties, IPs. So, you know, there is a lot that potentially could be considered by the board. Some of it could affect the fire service, you know, positively or negatively, depending on how you interpret the information there. So the nice part is, if it involves a change in the bylaws, you all are going to get a chance to vote on that, as bylaws are done by the membership. If it involves a change in council policy, then the board's going to have the opportunity to weigh in and make that decision. And I'm sure that there'll be a little bit of both in that document that Jim has there. So we will stand by.
Yeah, Chief Metz, if I could, I know we're running short on time. The bylaws committee started working last September. We slowed it down during the reincorporation of Delaware, so we complied with corporate law for that state. After the first of the year, we met every 2 weeks until 2 weeks ago, and we have prepared some bylaw proposed changes that the membership will get to vote on in Pittsburgh, folks. So really hoping you can make it. I think we produced some really great stuff, and we'll see what the membership decides. It's all good.
Thank you very much, Jim. Any other questions from the membership or governing committee? Okay, with that, our next meeting will be on Thursday, June 17th, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, which is our normal scheduled third Thursday of the month. I look forward to everybody joining us again. I think we're bringing back our speakers from a couple of months ago. Is that our schedule, Carl?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Jeff Greenwald's on, I know that, and he just sent me an email giving me a quick update. So we will talk about that next Tuesday and see if we can move that one forward. If not, we'll have another one. Nothing firm yet, though.
Perfect. Thank you. And again, if you have ideas on guest speakers that we can invite to come and join us, just like Angie did today, send us a name and contact number our way, and we will evaluate and determine if they're a good fit with us, and looking to bring in some new and interesting people. So on that, do we have any other questions or comments from the audience? Anything else for the good of the order?
The trout were this big. Oh.
I saw pictures. Good fishing there. Okay, I will be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Kelly. I'm sure I don't have anybody in opposition to that, so we will go ahead and adjourn the May meeting. Thank you, everybody, for spending time with us today.
Thanks, Randy.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.